Joining us now, public affairs analyst and deputy provost of the Nigerian Institute of Journalism, Dr. Jide Johnson, right here in the studio. Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Nice to have you.
Good morning to our...
Right.
All right, we'll also be joined on the phone from Abuja by Rotimi Oyekomi, the Chief Press Secretary to INEC Chairman. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Okay, great. Let's begin with you. Well, no going back on manual results collation and transmission. That's according to the INEC chairman. Walk us through exactly how or why INEC has come to this conclusion.
Well, INEC did not come to the conclusion. You know, it is true that efforts were made to amend the existing law, but there has been no vacuum. You know, the 2010 Electoral Act as amended is in existence, and the provisions are still in existence. And in fact, the general elections of 2015 were conducted based on that act, deriving its powers from the Constitution itself. So, and what it provides for is manual transmission of results. And it also specifies the specific forms to be filled at each level. And since that is what the law says, it will be acting outside the law to now say we're embarking on electronic transmission. We were doing that on pilot basis, you know, just to test run some of the innovations that we were doing. But we cannot deploy it fully for this election because there is no backing for that. There is no legal backing.
All right, let me bring Dr. Jide Johnson in here. When it comes to the law, INEC can only carry out its duties based on the specifications of the law.
Which agency is empowered to conduct, to take decision on everything that affects the election?
All right.
INEC. Was there a provision in the INEC law with respect to the timetable? You know, we discussed this issue, generated a lot of in 2018 when INEC came up with the timetable, putting the presidential and National Assembly election first and making the gubernatorial and House of Assembly election second. So I think that, and if INEC said they are not transmitting it electronically, I don't know what they mean. They are going to use calculator to calculate the result, even though they are doing manual, using hand to write it. And then the media will be there. The media will also be there to transmit transmit the result.
But that was what happened in 2015.
Whether it's electronic or what have you, even if it's electronic, the figure will be inputted by human beings. What people are saying is that use technology, input, rather than use calculator, you could use a computer, you could use a software. But the most important thing is transparency of the system. If you use electronic or manual, if it's not transparent, it will create problems. So the most important thing...
But do you think there will be challenges with the transparency of the manual collation of results? Because we saw in 2015, to a great extent, Nigerians were satisfied by the conduct of the election in 2015.
Well, you know, we have moved from the era of ballot snatching to the stage whereby we have figures being manipulated, and if you add 1 to 100 before or after, is either you have 1100 or you have 1001. So the key element is for INEC to be transparent, to be open. You saw what the gas INEC did with respect to 2015 election. There was full coverage, full media coverage. Everything was done in the open. People were following the process. You know, a lot of people waited for more than 48 hours, for almost 60 hours, following the trend. When there is the result of a state to be presented, we go live, everybody sees the process. And I think that's my advice to INEC, that be transparent, whether it's manual or electronic. If it's not transparent, there'll still be...
Okay, let me bring back the CPS to INEC Chairman Rotimi Oyekomi right there in Abuja, who's speaking with us, of course, via phone. Now the question is, how can you guarantee transparency with this manual results collation and transmission? How is it really going to affect the time from when the voter casts his ballot and when the results will be out?
Thank you very much. I think I agree with the speaker about being transparent. If you observe, this commission, since it came on board in 2015, has been quite transparent and open with the way it conducts its affairs. Now, the important thing to note is that the transparency starts from the polling unit level. Right from when this commission conducted the Anambra governorship election, we introduced what we call the People's Result Sheet. Remember, all the political parties participating in the election will have their agents in all our polling units. We have 119,973 polling units across the country, and all the political parties are expected to have their agents there. Now, at the polling unit level, the results will be collated, counted, and the figures entered. In fact, in the guidelines that we issued, it is mandatory for the presiding officer to ensure that the results of each polling unit are entered on that result sheet and countersigned by each of the agents at the polling unit level. So what we're actually sending to Abuja is already not at the polling unit level. So before we even announce the result at all, the result will be known, because each of the agents in all the states can then contact themselves. In fact, we will not only enter the figures in the people's result sheet, which is like a poster. We are going to paste it at the polling unit, so everybody there can take a picture. So you can take the picture and do the tabulation for we announce. That was what happened in Anambra, and you could see that even civil society organizations and those that monitor the election, they were praises for INEC, because the figures we announced eventually were the same figures that they also tabulated and calculated in the long run. So the thing is open. Our situation room will be open for people in Abuja to come in and out. We have said that. There is no magic that we are performing in there. So when people want to come and observe what we are doing, they can come in, they can see what we are doing, they can ask questions, we can tell them exactly what is going on, and they have people on the field to also send information. And if people have issues and they ask us, we are prepared to explain. Okay. So I agree, the transparency is there, and we want to assure Nigerians that everything will be done in the open. Okay.
All right, Dr. Johnson, let me bring you in here. Now, when it comes to improvement between 2015 and now, what INEC has done. We've had staggered elections. We had the Anambra election between this window. We've had Osun election. We've had Ekiti election. But if you compare the 2015 election and right now, how ready INEC is, how much of improvement would you say INEC has made in the conduct of process?
If you look at Ekiti's election, you look at Anambra's election, you give kudos to INEC in terms of the way and manner INEC worked. But if you look at the Osun's election, for example, and that takes me to one issue about transparency. I hope that the electoral officers will not be allowed to go in with their phone. Once they start the process, they shouldn't receive any call. Just imagine if Jega had received a call in 2015 when Urubibi was performing his theatrics. I think it's like you and I on set now receiving calls while we're on this set. I think this should be part of the protocol for the election, part of the protocol for the election with respect to not making whoever is the final coalition officer to be susceptible to whatever influence that may come from anywhere. I just give you a hypothetical situation. Let's assume that I'm the electoral officer, and then I was given your son or your daughter has been kidnapped. Make sure you do something about that result. At that point in time, nobody knows what I'm listening to. I can manipulate
exactly, and even at that time, it could just be a call from your wife saying, "I'm encouraging you, I'm praying for you." But people, exactly. But anybody watching from Yobe State or from Akwa Ibom State, we need it to be anything.
Perception is stronger than reality. So that's why I'm talking about this transparency with respect to. And I think that they need to look at the Jegas template, the approach of at least that. Was about the first time we really got it right when it comes to election, with INEC not being subjected to any kind of influence or.
But with the firmness, on Zamfara and the River State, where INEC is saying, well, the law says that APC may not be, you know, fielding candidates.
And standing
Does
by
it set, when you talk about perception, does it send signals that INEC is going to be
until
firm?
the Supreme Court rules? For me, for example, I think that the role of INEC should be that of an arbiter. Which of the party, which of the faction, actually INEC sent their representative to monitor the primaries, and they should have been able to determine which of the function, because all these parties have the names of their party officials with INEC in their respective state, in their respective, which one conducted the election. So we wait for the courts to decide whether this, because the right to vote are to be voted for resides with the people. INEC shouldn't be disenfranchised.
Okay, now before we wrap, let's even talk about the electoral law that the president refused to put pen to paper to. Do you think it's a missed opportunity? I mean, the Electoral Act was supposed to guide the electoral process. But in all fairness, the president said if he signed that Electoral Act, then the question would arise as to which electoral law would guide this 2019 election.
I think what we should be looking forward to in 2019 and the issues we place before the 9th National Assembly is for them to look at the defects in the 2011 Electoral Act and then review it and start in earnest before 2023 elections. We always keep things too late. And then also for the presidency to work in tandem with the leadership of the National Assembly at the National Caucus level, at breakfast meeting. All of these issues could be resolved amicably between the legislature and the executive for us to have an act that takes care of all the problems. You know, you keep improving. American Constitution, we keep referring to America. They keep improving. They keep making amendments. They will make amendments to whatever flaws that are discovered. May we not have what happened in Kogi State, for example, in Nigeria? It will create a problem, because this act that the president did not sign had made a provision for us not to have the kind of experience we have in Kogi State.
You're referring to James Faleke.
Faleke, Abubakar Abdu, and we will never had that experience again.
Okay. All right, we have to leave it here now. Dr. Jide Johnson, Deputy Provost, Nigerian Institute of Journalism. Thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
And of course, we had